Hey, I just wanted to make a quick video on the Griphoist or Turf War. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's a French company, so forgive me. I happen to have two of these at the moment. Just by chance, I acquired one of them, and then another one came up, and I grabbed it, knowing that I'd probably get rid of one or the other. But it was a unique opportunity to take a look at both of them, compare them, and kind of decide which direction I wanted to go. So I have two models here. This is the TU-28. This is the TU-17. You'll notice one says Griphoist, one says Tractel. That's just a difference in age. I think the company has either the name has changed or bought or merged or something, but you'll often hear these referred to as Griphoists or Turf Wars. So it's sort of synonymous with the company name, but Tractel, I believe, is the newer company. So this one here on the right is fairly new. It was an Amazon warehouse purchase, so it had been returned. It had been used a little bit, but is fairly recent, of fairly recent manufacture. This one on the left, I have no idea how old it is. There's a date code on it that leads me to believe it could have been made as long ago as 96, but it just didn't seem that old to me. This one it was pretty dirty when I got it. I got it from a pipeline contractor. It had clearly been down in a pit, was full of mud. Took it completely apart, cleaned all the gunk out, re-greased the insides, and I was amazed at how incredibly smooth it was once I got it working again. Also, the shear pins in the handle, they had been sheared off, and I knew that that was something that was easy to replace, so I did get a new set of shear pins for it, and there's actually a spare set that's stored inside the little handle here, inside this little compartment. So and that's one of the differences between the TU-28 and the TU-17, the number of shear pins. There's 3 shear pins on the 28, 2 shear pins on the 17. That's a safety mechanism. So you have a handle that slides down over this, and it's kind of nice because in some cases the handle itself is the thing that shears. It breaks off, so you have to order a brand new handle. In this case, there's just 3 aluminum pins of a very specific diameter that get wedged in here, and when you shear those, you just have to replace the pins. So pretty cool. The difference, obviously size and weight, it's because of the capacity, right? So the TU-28 has a 2-ton capacity. The TU-17 has a 1-ton capacity. You can definitely tell. So the 28 here is substantially larger. It's about 25 inches long from the tip of the hook to the very end. It also is substantially heavier. Weighs 41 pounds. So that's compared to the TU-17, which is only just a smidge over 20 inches long, and it only weighs, by my measurements, about 19 pounds. So you can see the size of these. And in the hand, the TU-28 definitely heavier, much heavier. In fact, you notice it has a handle here. It's actually one of my gripes about the smaller one. I think the handle is a great addition, and you could definitely use one even on the smaller model, but it's at least manageable without a handle. If you didn't have a handle on the larger model, it would be very, very unwieldy. So my recommendation, if you're listening, Tractel, Griphoist, put a handle on the smaller model. It's just handy. So let's get these back out of the way. So I mentioned those weights, 41 pounds versus 19 pounds, but you have to remember with the Griphoist, that's not all in. There's also the cable weight. So, the advantage to a Griphoist is you feed a cable in one end, actually in this end, it comes out the hook end, and you can feed as long a cable as you have, you can continuously feed it through there. So you're not limited by the amount of cable or chain or whatever that fits on a spool. So that's an advantage. The disadvantage is that your cable is not conveniently wound up on a spool, like with a come along or something like that, right? So how big are the cables? Well, it depends on how long a cable you get. You can use a 10-foot cable and it will work for confined spaces. You can use a 20, 30, 50, 80, 100-foot cable, but the cables get bigger and they get bigger quickly. So first I'll show you the cable that I have, which is just about a 60-foot cable. And this is for the TU-17. So this is about a 5/16 cable. I don't know if it's exactly 5/16. It's actually probably a metric measurement, but it measures in right about 5/16. Um, the cables are specific to these grip hoists. It's not a typical, I don't want to know how to phrase it. It's not a typical cable. The way it's laid is specific to the pulling mechanism, the gripper inside the hoist. So you have to actually go with, I don't want to say you have to go with their cable, but you have to go with a cable that's manufactured to be used with this type of puller. This actually is a Tractel cable. It's got their logo on the hook. You can see it matches the logo that's on the hook of the puller over here. So this is a factory cable. The other one I'm going to show you for the TU-28 is heavier, obviously. This is a 7/16 cable, so much bigger, much heavier. In fact, I have weights for these. So at the almost identical lengths, right around 60 feet, this is a 24-pound cable. This is a 13-pound cable, so substantially heavier. So for that length, to be able to pull the same length with the two hoists combined, it's a difference of 32 pounds for the setup on the right versus 65 pounds for the setup on the left. So again, in hand, handling this thing, especially by yourself, it is much bigger. The cable is much harder to handle when you're, rolling it out, when you're rolling it up, when you're just managing the cable, minding the cable, when you're doing your pulling. It is a much bigger, badder hoist. But the advantage, of course, is twice the pulling power, as I mentioned. So 2 tons versus 1 ton. Now, with any kind of puller like this, you can use mechanical advantage to double your pulling power or triple or whatever the case may be with, blocks and pulleys. But the trick is, because of this specialized cable, you're really not supposed to wrap this cable around a really tight radius. So I have a typical, block here, and a snatch block, I guess you call it. Well, not really a snatch block because it has a hook integrated, but this is what you might use. This is rated at 2 tons, so this would be sufficient for use for single line pull for either one of these, or doubling up with the TU-17. You see how kind of small and compact this is, right? But the cable would have to pass around this radius, and that's just too tight for this cable. So for the TU-17 specifically, for that 5/16 size cable, here is a look at the pulley block that comes with it. It's huge. It's so big that they had to make the sheaves themselves out of aluminum just to keep the whole thing from being, so enormously heavy. But you can see how big that wheel is in there. I mean, it's probably 5 inches across. So that's how they get, a larger radius that you're pulling around. So keep in mind, if you do want to get 2 tons of pulling power out of your TU-17, you'll need something like this, and it takes up a lot of space. So that definitely eats into the capacity difference, right? That said, having used both of these on a couple projects around the house and just sort of played with them, I think I'm going to keep the TU-17. It's just a more appropriate size. It's very rare that in my day-to-day meddling, I need more than a ton of pulling power. Usually it's far less than that. And of course, as I mentioned, you can use the pulley to increase your mechanical advantage if I ever had to. And because you have so much cable to work with, as soon as you start doubling up cable on something like a come along, you start to run out of pulling length pretty quickly. But because you have so much cable to work with, doubling it up is usually not that big a deal. So anyway, I just wanted to quickly compare these two side by side. When I was looking at them myself, I didn't see a lot of side by side comparisons. There were videos of one or the other, training videos, them in use, but not just a side by side, see how big they are, see how much they weigh type comparison. So I hope this was helpful to someone.